Welcome into another edition of the Hang Time Podcast. Sekou Smith in Atlanta here. My main man, John Schumann, is in New Jersey. Wild and crazy weekend around the NBA. Flat bonker shoe. I felt like we've stuffed 6 months worth of drama into 4.5, 5 days of actual games. You know, the Saturday night events at Staples Center certainly have dominated the headline shoe, but there's a lot more going on. But I think we'd be remiss if we didn't start off discussing the fight, the aftermath, and the suspensions handed out after LeBron James' home debut with the Lakers. Chris Paul and Rajon Rondo were at the center of the drama. Brandon Ingram, though, ends up with the 4-game suspension without pay for his role in the altercation. Rondo gets 3 games for spitting in the face of Chris Paul and throwing punches. Chris Paul gets 2 games without pay for retaliation. Since they've already decided what the punishments are, Shu, after you look back at all the video and see all of the details that went down, where do you find the biggest transgression by any of the people involved?
Well, spitting is not good. The Brandon Ingram, the 3 things he did were, I can't explain any of them. You know, first shoving James Harden when Harden was just sort of talking to the ref after the foul. Second, getting in the ref's face, like in the way that he did.
That was strange. His reaction to Jason Phillips saying whatever he said.
Yeah. And then third, coming in out of nowhere and throwing a sort of a sucker punch, I guess, when it was everybody else in the area was trying to separate Paul and Rondo. You know, the Lakers have said that the Rockets were trying to get under his skin
as
all
they
game
should.
Long. Yeah, I mean, yeah, and I don't know if he has sort of a reputation of a guy that will get easily distracted or that will get flustered if you try to play physical with him, or you know, if that's. I mean, obviously he's a skinny dude, so maybe you know the is just to play physical with him and try to keep him from having space to operate. But either way, you know, the 3 things that he did, all of them were kind of silly and inexcusable.
Yeah, I would take it that you agree that with a lot of people that Brandon Ingram was the most at fault. I think all of those guys were at fault to certain degrees. Even Chris Paul, after you get involved with Rondo, and I know he didn't instigate it, but got to be able to pull yourself away from foolish situations. And I'm with everybody else. You know, if you spit in my face, whatever logical thinking that I should have in that moment goes out the window. I think that's one of those things that it's hard for anybody to think rationally when you're thrown into that kind of mess. I hate it because what it did was overshadowed what looked like a pretty electric atmosphere at Staples Center and what was actually not a bad game. I mean, it was a pretty competitive game as well. LeBron finished his night just 9 of 22 from the floor, but 24 points, 5 rebounds, 5 assists, and they turned out all the stars. You know, you could look around the building and see that there were a ton of stars there. I would have one other slight observation from the game, Shu, that I'm not sure will be met with friendly response by a lot of Lakers fans. Did you find at all that the Lakers look like a team that's, I think the word I'm looking for is apprehensive? Like they're still trying to figure out, you know, and I'm talking about the supporting players, some of them, just trying to figure out what it is they're supposed to do playing off of LeBron. While LeBron, to me, looks like he's almost a little apprehensive, not as assertive as we've seen him when he's really comfortable and kind of dialed in and locked in with a team that he knows what to expect from his teammate.
They have to figure out, well, what's going to work best for them. I don't know if with the way their roster is built, if there's something that's going to work consistently and against the best teams in the West. But yeah, I think they're definitely searching, and it's no surprise really that they've been outscored by 21 points per game from 3-point range with their own lack of shooting and some defensive issues on the other end of the floor. But I mean, some guys have shot poorly. Caldwell Pope has shot poorly. Lonzo Ball has more threes than Caldwell Pope, Kuzma, and LeBron combined. And so, yeah, I think losing Ingram and Rondo for 4 and 3 games respectively is not going to help as far as trying to figure out the lineups that are going to work. The small ball has not worked at all in their first 2 games. They've basically gotten destroyed. You know, JaVale McGee's been the only center they've played, and they basically got destroyed defensively when he's off the floor so far. So the Kuzma/LeBron at center lineups have not been good. And, you know, I think there's definitely from LeBron to his teammates to Luke Walton, they're still searching for answers, obviously. And, we'll see what comes of these next few games without those guys. It's obviously an opportunity for Ball, an opportunity for Josh Hart. Caldwell Pope is going to get a little bit more rope without Ingram. So we'll see. It's early, but and we should expect this team to be much better in February and March than they are now. But these two games were important as far as where they are in the Western Conference, really, because especially like Portland, that should be a team that they're fighting for playoff position with down the line.
Well, you mentioned it being early. It is definitely early. Week 2 power rankings, Shu, are out there, and I was hoping there would be some crazy, shocking surprises on there, and there weren't.
Really?
I was not. I wasn't stunned. I thought you might have.
This is a week where you can sort of have some fun with it because you have basically 2 or 3 results for every team, and I just sort of scrapped the preseason stuff for the most part. And
you didn't have the Hawks in the top 5, so I was thinking it wasn't going to go off the rails. I know Trae Young had a big game, so now we're ready to give him Rookie of the Year. And, he gets 35 and 11 against the Cavs, first win of the season for the Hawks. I had a couple emails bright and early, telling me, you're wrong about Trae Young, which I never weighed in positively or negatively about what I thought about his selection. I think, like a lot of rookies going into tough situations, you have to give him time. You got to give him a little time to see what he's capable of. But no, I mean, I was being facetious when I said that. Obviously, it's what I expected. The top 5 being the Raptors, Nuggets, Pelicans, Warriors, Celtics. I think most people could deduce that those would be the teams in the mix, at least for one of those top 5 spots. If we're doing it after 3 games, I guess the one surprise shoot to some people might be the Nuggets, but they've looked really good. I mean, they have a very impressive win over the Warriors to put on their resume during the very early stages of this season. Are they the team out of everyone that's most impressed you so far, or would it be Toronto?
We knew Toronto was going to be good, and I think beating Boston is obviously a great win, and then coming back and winning in Washington on the second game of a back-to-back without Kawhi Leonard is obviously a good win. But I guess Denver is definitely a bigger surprise, not only because they beat Golden State, but because they have the league's number 1 defense through the first week. This is a team that has been at the bottom of the league in defense the last couple of years. They hadn't held 3 straight opponents under a point per possession at all in the last 2 seasons. They hadn't done it since like March of 2016, Mike Malone's first season with the Nuggets. So that's the surprise to me. We'll see if that holds up. But in a week where offense was sort of front and center and offense was at a much higher level than where it was in week 1 last year, the fact that they've held 3 straight opponents under a point per possession is definitely noteworthy.
The thing that's really stood out to me so far, and of course we are so, we're in the shallowest of waters, for an 82-game season, of course, is I wasn't expecting the quality of depth that some of these teams have shown early on to shine the way it has. The Milwaukee Bucks, I haven't always been enamored with their roster, just the makeup of the pieces and how they fit. But it speaks to what having a fresh set of eyes can do to a roster, and having a guy who's got a track record of, being able to take and shape and mold certain pieces together. I really like what Mike Budenholzer has done with that Bucks team. I think it's interesting. The Detroit Pistons have a couple of solid wins under their belt and look decidedly different in terms of how they're playing. Ish Smith and Reggie Jackson, they've been an issue at the position in the past. It looks to me like, Dwayne Casey maybe is figuring out a way to make that work, with those 2 guys where both of them bring certain things to the table. It's been as expected for me pretty much in the Western Conference, Shu. I'm not putting too much emphasis on records 3 games in for most of these teams. I'm really looking at just what these guys look like on the hoof as group. And I like what Portland has done so far. The Clippers have been surprising to me in how they've played. The one team that maybe I have a red light on about, or maybe I'll say yellow right now since we're still so early, and I know he's not in the lineup right now, and Russell Westbrook is Oklahoma City. I think there were people who felt like the Thunder would be one of the top 4 teams in the West, or had an opportunity to be one of the top 4 teams in the West this year. Shu, I'm not sure I like, even with Russ healthy in the lineup, I don't know that I like the makeup of the Thunder's team. Something about what they have as a group just does not sit well with me right now.
They've been pretty awful offensively. Westbrook coming back on Sunday and playing helped the offense a little bit, helped Paul George's numbers. Definitely Paul George shot much better on Sunday than he did in their first two games. But, yeah, like you said, beyond Westbrook, George, and Steven Adams, I mean, I think you are searching for answers. Dennis Schroeder has shot terribly so far. Obviously playing against starter, maybe things will be better playing against the bench now that Westbrook is back than he was against starters. But Patrick Patterson is off to another cold start. The guy seems to shoot poorly every October and November. And Terrence Ferguson hasn't shot well. I saw Abrines get hurt the other day, I think yesterday. I'm not sure what his status is going forward, but nobody basically has stepped up. Jeremy Grant can't make a shot from the outside. So I think it's going to be a year-long question, and at least until Andre Robertson gets back. Who can they count on beyond Westbrook, George, and Adams? I mean, those three are terrific, obviously, and one of the best trios in the league. But you need more beyond that. You know, when Westbrook gives their offense a little bit of a lift on Sunday, they can't stop the Kings, and not stopping the Kings is a bad sign, obviously.
We'll continue with a season-long autopsy on a lot of these teams, Shu. We dig into the circuitry on all these teams all year long. But that's one team to me that I felt like we kind of gave them a pass when Kevin Durant left. You know, everybody was like, well, and Russ wins an MVP, averages a triple-double in back-to-back years. We spent so much time celebrating the things they have done. I don't know that we focused as hard on the rougher edges of what they got going on in terms of they never fleshed out the roster when KD was there to me. And now with him gone and Paul George added, obviously Carmelo was there and gone. They still have some of those same issues in terms of roster makeup that I think bear watching. Your team to watch for week 2 is the Washington Wizards. And I know they're kicking off a 5-game road trip after a glorious 0-2 start, which kind of speaks to all of the things I said about them in our preview of the Wizards on NBA.com. I just don't understand why this team has such a difficult time playing up to their own internal expectations. What is it about the Wizards that does not seem to translate from who and what they think they are to what we see of them in action?
It's hard to explain. They can look fantastic at times. I mean, John Wall looked explosive, against Toronto the other night. Bradley Beal has looked great at times. But collectively, I don't know if the whole is ever greater than the sum of the parts. I think that's an issue. Obviously, they're missing Dwight Howard, and rebounding has been a huge problem with that for them in the first 2 games. I think they gave up 44 second chance points in the 2 games combined. And obviously, Kelly Olynyk got the game winner on a second chance where Markieff Morris failed to box out. They played their first 2 games against teams playing the second game of back-to-back. They were at home for both those games. They were rested for both of those games. You have to take care of business in that sense. And now they have a 5-game trip that starts Monday in Portland, and then they play Golden State, Sacramento, the Clippers, and Memphis. There's some winnable games on that trip, but they have to figure things out pretty quickly. I'm not sure about Dwight's Howard's status on the trip. He's still got the pain in the butt, I guess. And
I think he said he's a pain in his own butt, right?
Yeah, and he should help get killed on the glass, not only when they played small with Markieff Morris or Jeff Green at center. They've tried that quite a bit. But they've also been beat up on the glass when they've had Ian Mahinmi or Jason Smith at center too. So Howard taking some of those minutes will help in that regard. But like I said, I mean, this is about this team coming together. Otto Porter still not getting as many shots as I would like him to. Seems invisible at times. And like I said, this team has something to prove all season long. But right now, in regard to a disappointing start and a very interesting road trip.
Yeah. My team to keep an eye on this week, and I know it sounds nutty, because it's a team that you shouldn't have to worry about at all. And I'm not worried about them. But I think the Warriors have an interesting week to me, Shu. Hosting Phoenix tonight, a Phoenix team that's shown some life early on. They get a chance to, wrestle with the Wizards on Wednesday night at Oracle. And then they kind of, do an early, kind of get on the road a little bit early. I like that the Warriors seem more engaged early on this year. Maybe they're not as relaxed going into the regular season as they were after winning a championship a couple of years ago. maybe that they understand there's clear and present danger, at least theoretically, and not getting the kind of start you need to fight it out for that number one spot in the West. I mean, they gave it up last year. They did not chase with Houston last year. And I don't know if that was out of a sense of they felt comfortable in their position no matter where they landed and knew that they would be able to battle and win on the road in the playoffs, or they just didn't want to expend the kind of energy they knew it would take for something as, I don't know if, I'm trying to think of the right word. It's not trivial, because getting the number one seed often is the difference between a team, having a true opportunity to play for a championship or not. But for them, given what they've accomplished, it wasn't a necessity. I didn't feel like. I didn't think they felt like it was absolutely necessary for them to have the top spot in the standings to assure themselves a game 7 on the road at home potentially in the playoffs. They seem more locked in and focused. Maybe it's the closeness of their games they've played so far this season. Maybe it's, the injection of what's going on around them. The fact that some other teams have done things to put themselves in a different position. But I like that the Warriors are going to get challenged. You're going to see certain teams challenge them the way the Jazz did. And
I haven't been all that impressed with the Warriors, honestly. I mean, the one thing that's impressed me is that Kevin Durant and Stephen Curry can get buckets when they need one. But really, I
Klay hasn't shot it well. Yeah, I mean, there have been some issues.
Yeah, Klay Thompson's he's one for 14 on catch and shoot threes through 3 games. But I don't think they're all that locked in. I think they've just been able to, when teams have been threats, they've been able to just count on Durant sort of bailing them out with a lot of one-on-one possessions where you can just, all right, get the ball to KD, and he's able to shoot over whoever's guarding him. And, he's been terrific, and Curry has been good, but they needed the tip in from Jonas Jerebko in Utah, and then they couldn't make it work in Denver on Sunday. Turnovers being an issue again, and then their three-point shooting being an issue. What's weird is that they rank 26th in the percentage of their shots that have come from three-point range. Early on, they've been kind of mid-range heavy. That's sort of what you get with Durant. Thompson shooting better will help that, but I think also it's just a collective thing as well.
Yeah, and I wasn't getting at that they were playing great. I just meant that they're interesting to watch as they, to me, are more engaged. They cruise controlled a lot of times last year. To me, they were on cruise control, knowing that they were the better team, not stressing a loss here and there the way they did when you're chasing a 73-win season and trying to be all-time great. I'll be interested to see how they work through that, and especially how Draymond continues to kind of get himself in the right kind of game shape that he needs to be his most effective. I saw him that he mentioned something that shoot through the first week looks interesting. He talked about defense not being a priority in today's NBA anymore. And that when you look around and league-wide scoring is on the rise, maybe Draymond has a point. Maybe teams have decided the best way to counteract, this prevalence of pace and space and three-point shooting is to join it as opposed to trying to beat it. Why try and stop what looks inevitable and just see if you can't get on this train and ride? I mean, there have been some scores that I look up and go, man, this team's got 100 and what points at the end of the third, early in the fourth quarter? Like what?
Yeah, 10 teams have scored at least 125 in at least one game so far, and we haven't had a single overtime yet. And so compared to last year, pace is up. Pace will go down as the season goes along, I believe, but efficiency is also up, and efficiency usually increases as the season goes on. So we could be in for a heck of an offensive season. Like I said, efficiency is up from where we were last year, and it should increase as we go along. And so it could be a pretty incredible offensive season.
If we get more weeks like this first week, drama, high scores,
we still haven't resolved the Jimmy Butler issue. So we've got
that's like history now. Like Jimmy who? Like what? I mean, that's what I love. The news cycle in this league is nonstop. You could be hot news one week, and by the next Tuesday, nobody remembers your name. It's that kind of a deal around the NBA right now. And again, the Week 2 Power Rankings, John Schuman's Week 2 Power Rankings are on NBA.com. You need to dive in and make sure you check that out. Again, it's early, so it's not like you can send them hate mail because your team is not where you want them to be. There's plenty of time left in this NBA season for your team to either climb, fall, or be stagnant in the NBA.com Power Rankings. Shu, I know you were grinding away. I appreciate you taking the time, obviously, to hop on with your boy when I know you probably need a serious nap after burning that midnight oil on the Power Rankings. We'll be back on Thursday with another episode of the Hang Time Podcast. Make sure you check it out. And be sure to subscribe to Hang Time on Apple Podcasts and Spotify for episodes every Monday and Thursday all season long. Don't forget to leave a review. We appreciate you, and we'll see you right here next time on the Hang Time Podcast. I'm on the Hang Time Podcast.